Hello, I'm here with Doug Spindler, who's appearing here for the first time on the podcast to talk about dumping Tesla. But before that, we have a few things, starting with a gift card scam. So go ahead, Doug.
Sure. So this is a scam that's been around for a while, and it's pretty clever how these scammers are doing it. But what's going on is, let me tell you what they're doing to kind of prepare you for how the scam works or unfolds. But essentially, what's happening is people are receiving gift cards, and the gift cards have already been redeemed. So you have to say, how is that possible? So you get a gift card for the holidays, you open it up, you try and redeem it, and you find out it's zero balance. And you talk to the giver, and they said, no, it should be $500, $50, but it's worthless. So you call the gift card company, and they say, oh, no, you redeemed it the day you purchased it. And it's like, no, I didn't do that. So here's how the scam works. And by the way, this occurred in Alameda, California last year. There was a ring that was busted, and right now it's happening in Sacramento, California. A gentleman there was busted with, I believe, about 5,000 gift cards. So what happens is scammer goes into pick whatever store, Home Depot, Safeway, whoever has a rack of gift cards, Walmart. They take hundreds of gift cards off the wall, off the rack. They take them home. They carefully open up the envelope. They scratch off to reveal the code that's on the back of the card, write down the code. They then go out and you can buy the strip that the scratch off strip. They replace that. So now it looks like the gift card scratch, the scratcher hasn't been removed. They then carefully put it back in the envelope, go back into the store, and I call this their anti-stealing because they're putting the cards back on the shelf. Now, what the scammer, so in other words, a consumer can now buy the card. Scammer already has the number. They're running some script, some program, I'm guessing Python because that's probably the easiest. And they're constantly trying to redeem all the gift cards or the value that's off the gift cards. So as soon as honest customer goes into the store, and in Sacramento, it just happened to be a Target, so I'm going to pick on Target for a moment. So they go into Target, they pay for the gift card, the cashier at the Target store then activates the card, and then boom, the script that the scammer is running has already redeemed it. So it's kind of, you got to admit, it's kind of clever that it's a crime that occurs actually before the crime has actually occurred, before it's realized that the crime has actually taken place, if you will. So Sam, let me ask you this. Have you heard of this scam? Are you familiar with it?
No, I've not heard of it, but it sounds interesting. And I can think of a couple of mitigations. The first thing is apparently this means that the stores should treat those gift cards like cash and keep them behind the register. And obviously they're designed so you don't have to do that. The idea is that they don't have any value until later, so it's okay to just put them out in a less secure part of the store.
Yeah, but from a retailer's point of view, trying to lock it up like some of the stores are, yeah, it's not going to happen. So here's the easy mitigation for our listeners is you just buy your gift cards online. No physical gift cards.
Well,
but that doesn't mean there aren't other.
There could be an online guide that just starts selling cards online with this having been done to them. That would seem easy enough.
Well, what I'm saying is just don't buy physical cards. Go to Amazon directly.
Okay.
Go to your bank or go to the store and buy a gift card directly from them.
Well, gift cards have always been kind of a scam anyway. People have given me like 5 or 6 of them. I never redeemed them. I lost them somewhere. I'm sure that happens a lot. It's just
I will tell you, I've been following kind of gift cards, and yeah, I agree it's a scam, but it's in the billions of dollars that consumers lose per year.
Well, also, I would think the redeemer could detect this. They could detect somebody keeps trying to cash in a card that hasn't been activated yet. That would be pretty easy to detect if they look for it in their IDS.
Yeah, I would agree, but yeah, that's going to cost money.
Well, sure, they only do it, and this is, of course, like so many things, they're not losing money from it. So
correct, right?
Yeah. Well,
And the
it
consumer,
might though, because if this will make people just less likely to buy gift cards, so it'll depress the demand.
this scam has been going on for years, and it's not only in California. If you take a look at the article, the Sacramento Sheriff's Department is saying there are rings of individuals like this. And as I said, it's pretty difficult for somebody, if you're hitting a large number of stores, like in the Sacramento or say San Francisco Bay Area, if you keep hitting different stores, it's going to be very difficult for law enforcement to catch it because the crime has already occurred before the crime is actually happened, if you will.
Yeah. And also, I suppose at this time of year, gift cards are for people rushing to get a present
Yep.
in a hurry.
Yeah.
That's why one thing I
Yeah.
learned when I used to ride a bike everywhere is to just not even go anywhere near a mall in like no from like November 15 to the end of the year because oh, tense, crazy people rushing around not looking.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Christmas presents are the madness in our society. One of them. Anyway, uh,
Yeah. So that's there's our fraud story or scammer story.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we'll find another next time, won't we?
Oh, there's no end of it, and it's a good thing to tell people. So anyway, the other
Yeah.
thing I've been seeing a lot of articles about lately is the problems with EVs. We're having a huge government push to force everybody to get electric vehicles, but they're turning out to have serious problems. Hertz, I think, has actually abandoned using EVs, and now the German rental car giant, which is like the number 4 giant in the world, Sixt, is also
Six. Yeah.
selling off their Teslas. They've discovered now the first problem is Elon Musk has been lowering the price of Teslas to sell them, so their inventory they previously bought at the high price has now depreciated greatly because the current price is lower. But they say also the repair costs are too high for EVs, which surprises me. One of the early things promoting them is they would have less need to fix the engine and stuff, but apparently the repair costs for minor accidents are much higher. So people are just EVs are just not turning out to be this great thing everybody thought they would be. And I was surprised a couple of weeks ago. We had a story from the CEO of Toyota said, I was never behind EVs. EVs are not the future. If you want to decarbonize, hydrogen is the future. I didn't know that.
So this is a good topic to take a look at. I own 2 EVs,
Yeah.
and I also have a Chevy Volt, which is a plug-in or it's a hybrid,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I transitioned to an EV.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, I'm very happy with the EVs that I have,
Hmm.
and one happens to be a Tesla, the other happens to be Rivian, and yes, they're higher end, but my daughter purchased the Tesla.
And you charge them at home?
We charge both at home, and I'll tell you, we'll talk. Let's go into a little bit more depth on this.
Yeah.
When we bought the Volt, I put in 2 EV outlets in the garage. I had 2 installed, and I really didn't give this much thought, but they were in the back of the garage, kind of by the passenger rear window, rear wheel, so that when you pull in, yeah, that's where the circuit breaker box was. And I thought, you got a long cord, you plug it in wherever you want. So we quickly realized that the cord wasn't long enough and we had to back the car in. So, I should have thought through this a little bit more. Then we finally made the transition to a full EV. And now I needed a larger circuit. And I thought, no problem at all. But this time I'll be smart. Let me put the outlet or where the EV charger will be at the front of the garage. And that way, I should back up. At the time that I put in the charger for the Volt, I actually put 2 of them in because I thought, of course, we're probably going to buy another EV. And again, this was about 5 years ago. So I had 2 outlets that were right next to each other by the passenger rear window or rear wheel. When the Rivian came along, I realized the cord is way too short. So, and not only that, I'd have to drag it because the Rivian charger port is on the driver's side passenger front. So now we're talking about going diagonally across the garage. I'd have to either put it over the top of the Volt every time I want to charge, or the Volt would drive over the cord, and the cord wasn't long enough. So, now we go back to the drawing board. So this time I thought, I'm going to put the outlet in at the front. And that way I only need about 5 feet of charging cord unraveled. Life would be good. As soon as I pulled the wire and I was about ready to, and it's all inside the wall because I wanted to look kind of nice. I didn't want all the conduit and everything. So as I was about to, mount the charger, I thought, stupid me, I should put another charger there because that way the other car we can drive straight in. And since that way I have two chargers at the front of the garage, and we only need to unravel, 5 to 8 feet of cord instead of the full 25 feet. And I'll tell you, life has been good. So again, my daughter has a Tesla, and so lucky for us, that original EV outlet that's right under the circuit breaker, we plug in a charger there and she charges her car. It's outside. So now we got 3 outlets in use. So life is good for us. I will say, I am so impressed by the Tesla.
Hmm.
And in terms of the software, I can't speak for mechanic repairability, but the software is outstanding. Rivian software is outstanding. I've also taken a look at the Ford. I've taken a look at the Hummer or the GM lineup. And I got to tell you, if you take a look, Rivian and Tesla are at least a decade ahead when it comes to charging, understanding battery maintenance,
Mhm.
understanding all that. The other thing I got to say in favor of Elon is, I've been driving to LA quite a bit, and holy smokes, about halfway between LA and San Francisco is Kettleman City, where everybody stops to get gas and, take care of personal needs, grab a bite to eat. I got to tell you, I've lost count, but I think there are close to 400 chargers, if not 500 chargers, within 100 miles of each other or 50 miles of each other. At Harrah's Ranch, there's at least 80 Tesla chargers. But for all other brands that are non-Tesla, I think there are 8.
Yeah.
You go to Kettleman City, I've been told, I haven't charged at Kettleman City, but there's a lounge there, kind of like the first class lounge for the airport, where people who are needing a charge can go and relax. They got Wi-Fi. I think they have a restroom there. But I've been told, I think there are 100 chargers there.
Hmm.
They opened up in Santa Nella. I think there are another 100 chargers there. Again, I haven't verified that, but
Yeah.
my point is there are just Tesla chargers springing up faster than weeds.
Yeah. It's
And the one at Harris Ranch is kind of interesting because they put in, it's all solar powered. So obviously it's during the day, but the solar panels offer shade. So when it's 100 out and,
hmm.
you need some shade while instead of being cooked in a parking lot someplace, you got some shade there. And the facilities there at Harris Ranch are nice. They have quick food to go. They've got a restaurant. I think they have a golf course
Hmm.
and a hotel that's been there for a number of years. So
Yeah.
I got to tell you, if I were buying a car personally, I would go EV. I wouldn't go the Chevy route. I wouldn't go the Ford route. We look very closely at the Ford. The F-150 is the comparable,
Yeah. The light.
price wise. And I got to tell you, the shopping experience at a dealership, that was the worst experience ever.
Yeah.
And I didn't go to one dealership. We went to at least 12 dealerships because we weren't in a rush, but they all treated us like criminals.
Yeah.
Where's your money? And they knew nothing about the product. And if you go over onto YouTube, there's a channel. It's called State of Charge. And if you want to learn more about EVs, the gentleman that produces the videos there, it's sponsored by one of the charging installation companies. But he did a really fair and good job of the Rivian, of the Ford F-150, and he's actually done drive-by-drive comparisons where two people start out and you see how far you can go on a charge. And he's talked about a lot of the other cars. So if you want to know about EVs, that's a good source.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad to hear about it. I'm the opposite of this. I got a car that's about 25 years old, so I have absolutely nothing about modern car technology.
Yeah,
But
yeah. And, on the hydrogen, it's interesting about Toyota. There's a really good video that was produced maybe about 5, 6 years ago about hydrogen technology and how it's a big mistake.
hmm,
And if you compare that to EV, there are advantages with hydrogen, but the problem is the infrastructure. How do you store it? How do you transport it?
right,
And ultimately, yeah, we can get hydrogen from water, but right now all the hydrogen water is coming from fossil fuels. It's a
right.
byproduct of the cracking and
That's
of
right.
yeah,
Some new
yeah,
procedures, but they're not really ready for prime time yet. Anyway,
yeah.
next one you might also probably know more about than me is
Okay.
I've never used Clear. Now, people are really complaining about Clear at airports. I've used the TSA one, the
The
TSA,
TSA pre.
but apparently, I see these
Yeah.
Clear booths, but I never see anybody using it. Apparently, if you pay for Clear, it costs more, and you get to cut in front of the line, which irritates everybody. And I was not aware of this, but now people are freaking out because a few months ago somebody had Clear didn't do their job, so some guy was getting through with Clear clearance who shouldn't have gotten through. And anyway, people pay more for Clear, and then they get right to the front of the line. Apparently, I've never seen that.
Yeah, so I am not that familiar, but I just signed up for TSA pre. I'm not
Right.
sure if that's what it's called.
Yeah, that's good. It's not expensive, and that's absolutely good. And they handle that well. You just have a separate line for that.
Yeah, but the problem is I typically fly out of Oakland Airport, and you'll find that the TSA pre-line is sometimes longer than the regular
Yeah.
line.
Well, that
Uh,
sometimes happens. Yeah.
yeah, and I debated on the Clear. I think Clear is probably better if you're doing international flights. I think the benefit is coming back into the country
Yeah.
once you've left. And I just it wasn't for me. I know I've known people who have it that have sworn by it, but technology changes. So I'm not so sure about Clear at this time.
Yeah. They're going through a rough time. Anyway, let's go
Yeah.
to you with the right to be forgotten.
Yeah, so this is a real interesting topic. And I've recently done some research on this because I've known somebody that needs to be forgotten. They committed a crime a number of years ago, and they're still coming up as the number one. You type in their name, it comes up number one story.
Yeah.
Yes, they committed a crime. Yes, they did something that they shouldn't have done. They were convicted for it. They paid their debt to society. But the question is, should this pursue them for the rest of their lives? And yeah, it's a hard one. I think because do we want to erase history? And yeah, that's a challenging one. And before you comment, Sam, let me give you some background on this, on some other cases that are going on, or just kind of the state of where we are. To the best of my knowledge, at time of the recording, United States does not recognize right to be forgotten.
Right. Just
It,
Europe, I think.
just Europe, correct. And in Europe, there is a right to be forgotten. And I'm not exactly sure the details on that, but I do know there was a test case in Germany where there was a murderer who was convicted, and he appealed for right to be forgotten. And I believe that they did erase him, so to speak, or he was forgotten. And so there's some outrage for that. So that part I understand. But let's come back to the United States. And this is something that popped up probably about 10 years ago, that there were people who were 18, 19 years old, they were adults. They maybe were in a state where drug possession was considered more of a crime than many other states. And they were busted for a little bit of some illegal substance, or questionably illegal substance, if I
Yeah.
could say that.
Yeah.
So now they have a conviction on their record. And that was, say, 20 years ago. They still can't get a job. They've been convicted of a fine. And what's ironic, and I didn't provide the link for this, is that these Americans, they were going to Mexico City and they're working at call centers for American companies. And in some cases, the exact same American company that wouldn't hire them in the United States, but would hire them in Mexico and pay them pesos.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we've talked about this, but I think it's ironic that that was what was going on.
Oh, I've heard of
And
this. Americans fly
yeah,
to Mexico to get a job now.
and why did the American companies want these people? Because they sound American,
Right.
right? That way, when you call up, you have somebody with an American accent and somebody that goes, "Oh yeah, you know, I grew up in Florida or
Yeah.
Mississippi or choose whatever state. I'm Colorado."
Yeah.
And they could talk about baseball, football. They could talk about American things,
Yeah.
and your radar or your comfort level goes way down because you know it's not somebody with an accent that might be trying to scam you.
Yeah.
So again, you know, I think this right to be forgotten. I know that there's I believe there was a Radio Lab or This American Life episode not too long ago about it. And it's interesting. It's a company by company or newspaper, TV, radio station decision. And I think we need to do this. That's my take on this.
Yeah. Well, I think once they require it in Europe, it pretty much will spread worldwide just because they'll build the technology to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, if Google would get on board, then the search engines and it'll make it more difficult. And let me ask you, the technology to do this. Let's say that a TV station refuses to do it, but to have Google, um, I don't know. Could you submit your name to Google and say any searches with my name don't find? That wouldn't be a good. I'm just trying to think through the technology on this.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, I don't know anything specific, but I would think you
Yeah,
do the search, find the top 10 hits, and then remove those top 10 hits.
yeah,
From the Google
yeah.
index,
Okay.
it seems like you could pretty easily do it. And you can
Yeah,
pretty easily automate that.
yeah. The problem though is if you submit to Google to omit your name,
Yeah.
that means you won't be found in Facebook or
Yes. Well,
yeah,
here we have another big problem, which is Google search monopoly.
yeah.
Which
We'll save that for another
yeah, but I mean
discussion.
that's the
But
problem. I
yeah,
mean that's why
yeah,
otherwise it wouldn't be so important.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there'll definitely be some side effects and collateral damage.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
So, you know, it should be up to the companies, which would be press, you know, and
Unless you really have a right to be forgotten, in which case they would force every company to do it. That's the European.
right. Yeah, yeah,
The American position is currently up to the companies, and so people pay other people to try to persuade all the companies to take you down, and then it's sort of hit or miss.
yeah. So the article I was sharing also ties in with AI,
Yeah,
and everything ties in with AI. But you know, I just see this is complicating things in not fixing the problem, actually making things worse with AI.
yeah, which I think is what most AI initiatives are. I'm now consulting for companies that are onboarding AI initiatives. I remember the first thing they told me is we want technicians working in the field that are all gloved up are currently having to try to use an iPad to put in this information. So we want you to give them AI to be voice controlled. And I said, the best technology for that is to give them a cell phone and have a human at the other end. They said, no, it has to be AI. We're the AI initiative. And so everyone's going to ram some AI into their product, whether it makes sense or not, just so they can say they're using AI.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, it will do some good things right, but mostly it's just going to be the new trendy thing.
Yeah. You know, Sam, you know what we need is sustainable AI.
In what sense? You mean using less power or what?
No, sustainable, that's a buzzword. AI is the
Oh,
buzzword.
yeah.
So we need sustainable AI.
Well, what we're getting, in fact, that's my next couple stories. We're getting total chaos. Although the thing that amazes me is what I had the last podcast about is Microsoft is absolutely the leader. They are by
Yeah.
far the smartest.
Yeah.
They jumped in, which is not their normal role, but they jumped on this first. They did everything right, and their AI is just way ahead of everybody else's.
Yeah. Satya, he's really on board with this.
And he did the
And
smart moves. I'm
yeah,
amazed when the OpenAI collapsed. He was such a good CEO. He was calm and logical and smoothed over this disaster. And you could have made a mess out of that very easily.
yeah, yeah. It's incredible what Satya's doing with Microsoft right now.
And everybody is scrambling to keep up. And Google is a mile behind. So Google just announced Gemini, and they made a video that makes Gemini look great. And then it turns out they faked the video. They had it doing things like somebody would just make hand motions for rock paper scissors, and Gemini would say, "Oh, I recognize that, you're playing rock paper scissors," and there's like a footnote saying time might have been sped up or something, and it really was a lengthy process to get it to do that, and they made it look like it picks it up right away.
So,
So
so do you remember, shoot, what was it? Probably 4 years ago, give or take, when Elizabeth Holmes collapsed in Theranos, there was another company called Nikola Trucks. And
right,
I believe they were out of
they,
Arizona.
they filmed the truck going down a hill and tilted the
Yeah.
camera. Yeah, and there was, remember, one of the first chess playing robots was just a midget in a suit playing chess. This goes all the way back. These fake AIs.
Fake. Yeah. And, we should also extend that to fake reviews.
Yeah,
And somebody just posted, I forgot, it was maybe Amazon, some reviews where there were probably 100 reviews that were all 5-star
yeah,
by somebody within 5 minutes of each other.
yeah,
And you look at the number of reviews that they posted, and it was 1 or 2.
yeah. Oh, and there's online mechanical Turk jobs just posting fake reviews.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
So what
anyway,
do we have? Sorry, go ahead. What I
I
was
just
gonna.
noticed the other AI thing that came up is jailbreaking AIs. I'm going to be teaching yet another machine learning class next week, and this is jailbreaking is putting in a special prompt that will cause the AI to reveal its secrets. Like, what are the rules? What is your algorithm? What is your training data? and
Yeah,
and do the things you're not supposed to do, like tell me how to make a bomb. And now they found the best way to design these attacks is they train an AI to jailbreak the other AI. Which makes complete sense. That's a job. And they said it's enormously successful. It has like a 45% success rate at designing prompts that will cause the other AI to leak out the secrets. So,
yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
well, this is what they predicted, like for the last decade, is we're going to have attackers using AI, and then the defenders are going to have to use AI. And we move closer to these nightmare scenarios where robots are out there fighting robots and humans are nowhere in the loop.
Well, I thought years ago when Siri came out that we should have Siri and Alexa have a conversation.
Yeah. Didn't that ever happen? Seems like that would have to happen.
I think somebody should do that. Two
It is,
phones.
it's definitely happened with AIs. There was about 5 years, maybe 3 years ago, they got an AI and it started talking to another part of the AI, and then it developed its own special sort of code word and language so people couldn't tell what it was saying anymore. And they shut it down, feeling like it could be plotting against us. But they do that. They communicate among themselves and just develop and there are people who make a swarm of drones that are discussing things. And
Yeah,
it relates to this fundamental issue. Do you want your AI to be limited only to do things that a human can understand or not? You could go either way. But if you
right.
limit it, it will invent ways to communicate that you can't understand and ways to think that you can't understand. And that's probably more efficient, but it's also really not easy for us to control anymore.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see. You
Yeah.
can't put the genie back in the bottle again, right?
Anyway, you've got this story I heard about years ago, the guy that crashed a plane on purpose. Like, what
Yeah.
with this guy?
So this, I've right now I forgot his name. I don't know if you can. So this is a guy out of Santa Barbara,
Trevor Jacob.
Trevor Jacobs. Yeah, there we go. So Trevor Jacobs, Trevor Jacob is a pilot. He's a YouTube. He had a moderate YouTube channel. He was an Olympic snowboarder, didn't medal, but he did participate in the Olympics, kind of extreme sports. He's a parachutist. He's also, at the time, a licensed pilot. And he, as I said, had a somewhat mediocre following on YouTube. And he got the brilliant idea in making a video. And he put several different cameras around his plane. He took off from Lopok, California, which is down by Santa Barbara. And he got into a plane, and he, as he's flying along, he had all his cameras there, different angles. And he said, a few years ago, somebody passed away, and I'm flying up to Mammoth, and I'm going to disperse his ashes over, I think, Los Angeles National Forest. I might be wrong on that. So 30 minutes into the flight, the next thing he says is, "Oh, my engine's crapped out. Good thing I have a parachute." And he crashes his plane. He jumps out, he parachutes to the ground. He has a selfie stick, and he's got the whole footage of the plane crashing, into the ground there. National Forest, nobody's there, but this is, I believe, November. So fire season isn't over. And, not a good idea, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So people, and he posted on YouTube, "Oops," something like that. "Oops, I crashed my plane." Did you see the video, Sam, by any chance?
No, I just saw
Okay.
some articles about it.
Okay. So immediately, pilots just jumped on and said, "Wait a minute. First off, he's got a 1940s plane that was fairly old, but it was completely airworthy at the time that he purchased it." They started looking at it frame by frame, and as you look, he had the cabin door open already. So that was kind of like, nobody flies with the cabin door open unless you're going to crash. That's the only time you're getting out at the airport.
Yep.
Okay, so that was the first thing. Then they noticed when he jumped out of the plane, the camera, if you looked at his legs, you could clearly see under his pant leg what looked like fire extinguishers. You could see the gauge at the top, and fire extinguishers just kind of have that characteristic round bottom shape. You could clearly see it through his pant leg. And then as people started looking at it even closer, they noticed that the engine was changed from when he originally purchased the plane, that clearly there was a different engine put in there. You could see with the cylinder configuration. And then as somebody zoomed in, you could clearly see that he spray painted the valve cover gaskets so that the color kind of blended in. But if you looked at the exhaust system, it clearly wasn't. Clearly a different engine. So that was kind of another giveaway. And then as you look at the ground, as you look at the footage from the GoPros that he had, you could see that there were areas that he could have safely landed the plane. And the other is, the last kind of giveaway is, how many private pilots fly with a parachute strapped to them? And the answer is, for those of you who are pilots, none. Nobody ever does that.
Yeah.
So this went back and forth. And there's a little bit more to the story. So he crashed the plane. He now parachutes down. He hikes to get to the plane. He takes all the GoPro footage. He takes the cameras, and he hikes out of wherever he is. And that's also part of his YouTube story, to add suspense to it. So eventually he gets back, he gets a friend, and he, who has a helicopter. They fly back there, they pick up the plane, they remove it. So luckily, no fire. The plane just kind of crashed into the ground. Nothing spectacular. So they get a helicopter, they pick it up, they bring it to an airport someplace, and for the next 3 days, he cuts the plane up and he throws it away. Kind of sad that, a nice airworthy plane gets destroyed, but okay. So he cuts up, he disposes of it, and somewhere along the line, he contacts the FAA or NTSB, and they said, "Okay, it's your job as a licensed pilot to preserve the crash scene, right? Not to do anything because they want to inspect. Was this a problem with the plane? Are other planes going to be affected?
Yeah.
Right? They want to see what the cause is. Obviously, Trevor didn't want people to know that, didn't want government officials to know that. So he lied. And eventually this all came, to light. He lost his pilot's license, or I'm not sure if he's lost it, but it's been suspended.
Mhm.
And he eventually was a year investigation went on, give or take, maybe a little more, and he finally lost his pilot's, or pardon me, he's been given a at the federal level 6-month prison sentence.
Yeah.
So the question here is, maybe we could debate this a little bit. How far should YouTubers go
Right.
in order to, make a video to get the clicks? And in Trevor's case, he also had a sponsor that was behind this. And I don't know if the sponsor knew of this, what was going on, but should they be held accountable?
Yeah.
That's a tough one to call.
Yeah. And it reminds me of these people that will go like stand on the edge of a cliff to get a selfie, and then some of them fall off.
Yeah, and it's the cliff's fault because there was no guardrail there.
Well, they carefully chose
Yeah,
a spot that would look dramatic.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, well, people are nuts.
yeah. But I
There's
guess
also
I
these thing I've heard
yeah.
that a lot of young people want to become influencers now, and apparently it's even a bigger deal in China. Young people want to become influencers, and they make real money from having these online presences.
Yeah, I've heard in the United States, and maybe Europe, I'm not certain about that, but in the US, that the money isn't there as it used to be.
No,
Um,
it
I think,
obviously it can't be. I had a student
yeah,
at CPTC. I said, you can get a real job. And he said, oh, I'm going to get my money by making a YouTube channel. I'm like, I don't think so. And I said, you need a lot of hits before you really make any money. And they said, oh, no, you'll make all this money. I said, I don't think so. I think getting a real job would be better.
yeah, yeah. And what's interesting is I think, is it California? His mandating, I think, I don't know if it's nationwide or if it's just California, but in K through 12 that they're promoting. I need to look into this, but I saw this about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that they're promoting. This is that all high schools should be teaching some kind of technology class. I'm not saying on influencing, but that they should be tech savvy literate.
Well, you heard that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and I will tell you, as and our audience may not know, I'm also been a college instructor,
Yeah.
and I got to tell you, the K through 12 teachers that are telling kids not to get involved, or parents that their students shouldn't be, or their kids shouldn't be using iPads, shouldn't be using technology, limit technology. They're at such a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And when they try and get jobs, even if they're getting mediocre jobs, or lower paying jobs, they're expected to know computers. And if all they can do is text, it's difficult for them even to get one of these types of jobs.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, I have a couple more short stories.
Sure.
Meta just rolled out end-to-end encryption on Messenger, and I thought they did this long ago, but what I discovered, it wasn't turned on by default. Now they're going to turn it on by
Oh,
default for everybody. You had to go and turn on some special, I want a private message or something. So that's why I thought this happened years ago. But now it's going to be the default, I think this will mostly affect law enforcement, really. I bet normal people don't really know or care how encrypted their stuff is. But
no, nobody cares,
yeah,
and
well,
unless they get arrested.
right, or except criminals, or
Yeah,
high
yeah.
value targets like journalists covering sensitive stories or something. But anyway, I don't know why they're doing it either, actually, since the customers don't care. But I guess they imagine they can get some marketing out of claiming to be more private.
So, Sam, to elaborate on this a little bit, I think in France, aren't they trying to
Yeah.
make it illegal?
Yeah, no, that just I heard that on Steve Gibson's podcast. They just
Yeah.
told everybody I think they're going to outlaw all foreign messengers and tell everybody to use the French one. And the French one really sounds great. It uses a new encryption scheme. It doesn't rely on any central servers. It sounds really advanced and cool.
Okay, we'll see. Technology is going to continue to advance, isn't it?
Yeah, but the French one sounds really smart, decentralized and good. Although forcing you to use it is a bit harsh.
Yeah, and not giving the choice. So
Yeah,
I don't know. Could I'll ask this: could law enforcement have a backdoor in there?
well, that's why the French one you can probably have pretty good reason to believe they don't. But as a
Okay.
Facebook one, I would assume they do.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
um,
and based on Facebook or Meta's track record, right?
sure. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I tell my students, big companies like Microsoft and AT&T are basically a branch of the government anyway. I'm sure they're handing everything over to the government. They're very highly close. When we talk about encryption, like elliptic curve cryptography, there's the NIST approved curves, which are almost certainly backdoored. So you only use those if you work for the government or the military. Otherwise, you carefully use the unapproved ones.
Yeah.
And so you decide whether you're closely allied to the government and the military, or you're sort of opposed to the government and military. Those are the two positions you can take.
Right.
And these
Right.
big companies have clearly chosen to cooperate with the government. That's why, we make a huge deal about TikTok because Chinese government might influence them. I said, you don't think the Chinese government is influencing Microsoft and Facebook? The American government is influencing Facebook and AT&T.
Yeah. So since you brought up TikTok on this,
Yeah.
wasn't it Montana that was trying to, or
Yeah.
Utah that wanted to make
Montana.
TikTok illegal?
Montana
Or I
tried.
think they did do it, didn't they?
They did, but it just got suspended in the court, saying
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can do what a lot of people have done, which is say you can't put it on government devices, but they
Right.
say no
Right.
citizens can use it, and that appears to violate the First Amendment. So
Yeah, and then and just to kind of continue along this thought process, what happens if you go into the state from an adjacent state and you have the app where it's legal?
yeah,
So let's not go there, but it opens up some interesting legal
yeah, it's important
issues.
to get a decision on this, and it
Yeah,
hasn't been resolved yet. But so far, that law has been suspended. On the grounds that it's probably going to lose.
yeah. It's going to fade into history.
I think so. It reminds me of about 10 years ago, Utah tried to ban all pornography and say that every ISP had to automatically filter pornography by default and only turn it on if you got a request. And I never heard that actually happen. So I'm not sure that one took effect.
I did not hear that one, but
They attempted.
fat chance.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can clearly, there's a bunch of people that would like that. But
Right,
yeah.
absolutely.
Anyway, the last one, I wish I had more technical information. There's a TechCrunch article saying patient scans and health records are spilling online because of this thing called DICOM, which is Digital Imaging Communications in Media. This is a standard that's universally recognized for X-rays and other medical things.
Correct. Yes.
People do is they just put this stuff on unprotected servers like FTP sites where anybody can download it. That's the standard. And of course, it's got metadata and personal data. I don't understand why anybody ever thought it would be okay to put it on a server where you don't need to have a password or something to get in. But apparently that has been the standard. They've had deployment of just publicly available servers with all these DICOM files.
So I've worked in healthcare and I never really thought about this. And yeah, I am familiar with DICOM
Yeah.
and how this is set up. But typically, this might be a CAT scan, and give me a second to think through this. But at the hospital that I was working at, let's name isn't important, but they were doing research there, and it was a lot of kind of leading edge technology, leading edge type of work. And yeah, they were using DICOM to with X-rays or CAT scans. Let's kind of simplify it, leave it at that. And so they would have to share it with the physician. And you're right, they would use an FTP server, and there's got to be metadata with it. Otherwise, how do you know whose patient it is?
Right.
And we were secure, but I will tell you that those X-rays, CAT scans, were being not leaked, but shared through an unsecure, well,
Yeah.
semi-secure FTP server. Let me phrase it that way. But the reason was to get it outside to a partner, to a medical partner,
Right.
or to the original physician so that they could take a look at it. And that was many, many years ago, but I can see that happening. And then you also have patients that are being giving, right, their CAT scans on a DVD or some USB stick, some media. And I could see them saying, oh, here's an ultrasound of my baby, something like that. Or here's a picture of my tumor, my brain tumor. And I could see somebody uploading that and not realizing there's metadata with it.
Well, yeah, yeah. Anyway, it's
Yeah.
apparently it's been going
Yeah.
on for decades, and
Oh yeah. I
just seems like we ought to be securing these the way we secure any other PII file.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, the technology is ahead of the security
Yeah.
or the
First
private.
thing,
Yeah.
well, the first thing you go for is availability.
Right.
About confidentiality later. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right. Well, I think that's it for this one. And I'll have another one on Tuesday.